everyone, welcome to our conference.
This conference is unique as it has been organised by young people to tackle a pressing issue that affects us all, the mental health crisis in youth. And that is very important that we are being empowered to do this.
We're gathered with a shared purpose, surrounded by inspiring individuals, brimming with innovative ideas. This is not someone else's problem, it's our collective responsibility. We need to forge a different path forward, and I think it's time for us to carve a way forward that looks at the whole challenge differently.
Is anyone else resting on the edge of a cliff, constantly lifted into the feeling of falling down that abyss every time they stop to think? It gets kind of hard to stop thinking. Is anyone else overthinking so much they wish it would be over? I'm so over this roller coaster of work, over life, of all the times I've missed meals and skipped sleep because my identity hinges on the letter written in red pen on that test paper and the next one till it's been 10 years since you've had fun for more time than you've done stuff. When you grow up, will you still run on the treadmill to catch up to the life that you've built up in your head when you run out of breath, that you've held on to for so long that you forgot what it means to rest? When's the last time you took a breath? How much rest have you mislabeled as laziness? Anyone else felt like schools were built to induce stress? I must have missed the class where they teach us what it feels like to actually be alive, because all this time I've been living, I'm missing what it feels like to thrive. Like every time I cut myself off, I call myself dumb. We never learnt to treat us the way we speak to the ones we love. Between all this busy of our weeks turned to endless months, is there any space left to connect? Do we forget to wait for the answer when we ask about their mood? Do we wait for the truth? Is there any room for the real smiles and raw tears and tight chests? How many times have you been asked how you are and said, fine? As you hide behind a mask where it's safe to cry in the cage of your own head, is anyone else fed up, had days where they're done with the world's dump of COVID, climate, cost of living? How many crises can we take till it's enough? But surely all this stuff we've been through before we've even got to 24 just says it all, because they could set our home on fire and we would still turn up the music, call our friends, have a meltdown or two, and then christen this light a bonfire, bring out the barbecue, live among the flames and still call it lit. And isn't that the entire definition of resilience? Newborns can only see up to 30 centimeters in front of their face. The rest is a blur of light, shape, and movement. The world's first lesson is to teach you that you can never see the future clearly. Only just enough to let you know it's worth the walk. Hope can take on a life of its own. Grow legs and walk to the local cafe. Leave a piece of itself at the coffee table for the next caffeine-consuming customer at Starbucks. Engrave its initials in the bark of a tall oak for two unassuming starstruck young loves at the park. And hope is believing in the wonderful right up until the end credits, because this is a long film called life, so bring some popcorn and pack plenty of hope in your purse, pockets, palms, share it with everything you touch and watch them smile with a full heart. Hope will bury itself in a bookmark and Gulliver's Travel into the curls of the page. Rest in the spine of a classic tale until it's swallowed whole by the shallow breath of a girl sat inside her own shadow, absorbed in paper, bound by imagination, found and gifted. Hope is in a locket passed down generations, lost and found at a charity store, a thrift shop, a doorstep to your next opportunity. Hope leaves behind footsteps in the sand that can't be washed away by the tide. It's scattered through the beach and gently seeps into your stride. I have been playing hide and seek with the sun, and this is its finest disappearing act. And yet somewhere on the flip side of this globe is a gleaming trophy belonging to the sky. It shine beaming, I won. So even in this sheet of darkness, I know the sun will come home and hug my window frame by morning. There's hope. It's in new life. It's finding new in the old. It's the heartbeat that keeps the soul of time alive. It's an untraveled road, the storm and the rainbow. Shaking hands, sharing stories, making a pact to play Chinese whispers with wonder. Pass the parcel with joy. Add laughter to the clouds' next recipe of rain, and we will call this a new day. Call this change, growth. Hope is not knowing what the world will look like tomorrow, but knowing it will be better than today. In the first 3 minutes following the birth of the universe, the light elements like hydrogen and helium were formed. In the last 3 minutes, the universe expanded about 8,000 miles. Hope is believing everything is growing, even when we can't see it or know it, even in a blur of light, shape, and movement. Did you feel that? The universe just grew beneath your feet.
I am one young person who's going to be sharing my experiences in the next 15-20 minutes or so, but I'm sure that so many other young people can resonate with what I'm about to say, and there's so many things that other young people are experiencing which I cannot talk about right now, but we need more forums like this where young people can share their experiences, talk about these topics, and build a safe space for them to be able to figure out the way out, because unfortunately as a young person sometimes it feels like there is no way out, and that's why we're seeing such a bad mental health crisis for young people today. Childhood, your young years are meant to be the best years of your life. Anyone else being told that university is the best 3 or 4 years of their life? I got told that too, and to be frank, I do not feel like it was the best few years of my life. Why wasn't I told when I was younger that these resources were available? Why wasn't I told when I was younger how to identify those feelings and take action on them? Why wasn't I told when I was younger that stress is inevitable, stress can't be avoided, you can't just remove stress out of your life? And he said to me the other day, he was like, why can't you just get rid of the stress out of my life? And I was like, I would love to, but stress is part and parcel of life. And he was like, but why didn't they tell me that at school? And I was like, I can't give you the answer for that either, because that's only something I've learned in recent years. And it just made me reflect on, I see him, and I went through that myself, memorizing all these equations for physics and maths, memorizing 18 poems for your English literature exam, and only like a few of them come up. And all that stress that's put on young people, we're still not given the tools and the awareness and the education to be able to navigate, to be able to deal with that. We're not even aware that stress is something that is inevitable. We just have to learn to build resilience and find our tools, our toolkit that's going to help us get through life and manage stress. It's non-stop. And there's so many young people I speak to who feel the same. And then you're told that once you hit a certain age and you start working, you're going to be hit with all these other stresses and worries, and you just feel like it's never ending. And imagine if we were given that knowledge in the classroom. Imagine if from a young age we were taught how to deal with stress. So when exam time comes around, when you first do your GCSEs, you know how to deal with it. Or you can at least take the first step into figuring out your own way to deal with it. But unfortunately, we just don't have that education right now. And I think young people are the key to pioneering this theme and this topic, because we live it. We have that lived experience that takes us back into the classroom, where we spend hours and hours of our life preparing to be thrown into the big world. But we're missing such a big, vital piece of education, which is our resilience, understanding our emotions, understanding our brain, understanding how we feel, why we feel what we feel, understanding that stress is inevitable. All of these things that unfortunately it seems like we only learn through personal experience.
I think we have to stop offering sticking plaster solutions. Now we need to go back and look at the cause. And the cause doesn't have to be some deep trauma. I mean, sometimes it is, but it doesn't have to be a deep trauma. Every experience you have as a child forms a belief. And if you have repeated negative experiences, they turn into a belief on self. And in the end, the child goes, oh, it's me. Core of most of this is self-esteem. And we heard a lot about resilience. And resilience is only possible if you have good self-esteem. Because otherwise, whatever comes along, you're just going to think, well, I can't do it, or I'm not good enough. And so that's the paradigm shift I would advocate for, which is, really forget the sticking plasters. We've got to go back to root cause.
But the point that I want to make, which I think I haven't heard today, is actually viewing mental ill health as a spectrum and a continuum. It's not just you have this condition and that's it in a box. It doesn't actually work that way. And if we look at, so I'm neurodiverse.
Obviously, I've been using music as a biohack for 30 years, and the ears lead to the brain, and so every sound that enters is creating a cascade of electrochemical responses that can change the way we think, the way we feel, the way we sleep, everything. And one of the things that is not talked about enough is the gut-brain axis, and the fact that our gut bacteria have a very significant effect on our baseline dopamine, serotonin levels. The way we think, operate, function biologically is determined by our gut microbiome.
When you're at school, they talk about alcohol abuse, drug misuse, sex education, but the most fundamental thing that every single person has to go through is stress. So why aren't we doing more from a preventive measures really earlier on, talking about gut brain and the importance of that, talking about low self-esteem? Why aren't schools doing that? What can we do to encourage, encourage is probably the right word to use, I wouldn't say force, to enforce schools to kind of take this more seriously and very earlier on, rather than waiting for it to be a reactive measure and, like you said, putting a plaster on.
They're losing a lot of school days, particularly when you get to sixth form and above, because students can't cope. They're having very stressed out children. The schools are crying out for mental health support because if they do employ someone, they can't cope. The demand is too high. If there's a way of encouraging the schools to say, look, if you just teach these simple techniques, if you introduce resilience, if you talk about stress, if you introduce this early, mindfulness, very simple techniques, the breathing that Julia was talking about, you will have less lost school days. If you have less lost school days, Ofsted will get off your back.
I quite like the phrase, it's not your fault if you get messed up, but it is your fault if you stay messed up. Because there are lots and lots of options, and we are in a room full of young adults that have taken it upon themselves to try and make a difference and take their futures, the happiness and the mental health of other people their age into their own hands. Don't wait for somebody else to fix the problems. Crack on and make some headway yourselves.
Hello everyone, I am Grace and I'm part of the Nexgen team. We wanted to take this opportunity to ask you for your support on one of our most important initiatives. As we all know, the mental health crisis among young people is growing at an alarming rate, and it's time for us to take action and help those in need. At Nexgen Wellbeing, we have taken on this challenge head-on by creating the 30-day mental health reset. It is a comprehensive programme designed to help young people manage stress, conquer anxiety and overcome low mood. With 30 engaging videos and impactful challenges delivered daily for a month, students can reset their mental health and unlock their full potential. The programme has been approved by two leading experts in the field of mental health and wellbeing, Helen Gormley and Dr. Sunny Cleo, who bring an integrative and innovative approach to wellbeing with a proven track record of effectiveness, and the results speak for themselves. We have received numerous testimonials from students who have gone through the programme, such as, "This was an amazing journey, I'm in such a better place now. I wish I'd seen these earlier, it has made such a big difference. These videos saved my life." The best part about the 30-day mental reset is that it is completely free, making it accessible to all. It can be used as part of PSHE lessons, form time, homework, independent learning and more. Prioritising the social and emotional well-being of our students is not only important for their mental health, but it is also linked to better educational outcomes. That's why I'm urging young people to take advantage of this opportunity. These resources exist, they are approved by experts, they have had positive feedback from young people and they are free to access. So do make the most of them. I would also ask you to help to bring these resources into schools and universities. If you can help facilitate this, please speak to one of our team members and let us know your details. Let's make these resources accessible to students across the United Kingdom. Thank you so much for your time and support.
Today I would like to present the Nexgen Award for Services to Mental Health to an individual who has a huge passion for mental health and is always keen in advocating ways in which the education system can be reformed to facilitate better youth mental health. Whilst this individual is focusing on their academic studies, they also go above and beyond and is now a current activist for a charity, Young Minds. As a person who has a lot of passion and puts his heart and soul into his community, I would like to congratulate and bring up onto the stage Stefano De Rico.
I love Mum and Dad. It's almost a shame when you have to grow up and leave home. But uni will be amazing. Let's face it, There's 500 people there. It's not like I'll be alone. I remember feeling excited as the car got packed. Mum was crying, Dad was tearful, but just rested his hand on my back. He told me to have fun, but not too much. He told me to call Mum, but not too much. So off we went, Mum waving from the drive. Dad was excited for me. I felt grown up and alive. The university was huge, and as we pulled up outside the dorm, I was greeted by my flatmate who smiled and seemed warm. Everything seemed perfect. My life had now begun. The first few weeks were a blur, and I barely thought of Mum. But soon the pressure shunted my mood as the workload took its toll. My studying became stunted as deadlines loomed, and I lost sight of my goal. My best seemed never good enough. Each day became a fight. My evenings became my waking hours as days turned into nights. I started skipping classes. I became lonely, a recluse. My grades began to fall away as I fell closer to the noose. I just don't know why no one helped. I lied each time my parents called. I told them things were fine, but underneath the surface lay that broken heart of mine. Each day became harder, each night full of fears. My mental health still falling as I'm crawling on my knees in floods of tears. I feel hollow. I feel lost. I've lost hope. I felt like I couldn't reach out, and each time I tried, I choked. The morning that I did it, I remember feeling free. I remember wishing that I had support and things weren't all left to me. My uni never saw the signs. They missed my vacant stare. I was left without protection, and they were clearly unaware of just how hard my life had got, how hard my life became, how hard it got to reach a class or just to brave the winter rain. The hearse was ready, Mum crying on the drive, Dad remembering the day I left for uni so alive, thinking I'd be safe, thinking it would all turn out okay, knowing that even if things got hard, tomorrow's another day. A kid that just left school and became a man overnight. No more parental guidance, left alone to face the fight. 100 kids that die each year, now one of them is me. 100 kids could still be here, if only the system could see. I wish a duty of care was in place, to help the kids like me. Maybe things will change one day, if only the system would see.
I can name on my hand how many PSHE lessons I had which haven't been relevant to my day-to-day life, and what if they were substituted in with useful information that meant that I could, navigate through life a lot easier.
Yeah, I think the education needs to be performed it's threefold. The answer is threefold. So firstly, I think you need to have peer-to-peer support, which is something I hope to touch on later on, and then you also need to educate the teachers better. So the teachers need mental health first aid training from the start. They need to be able to go into classrooms and spot the signs early. And then with this training, they need to be able to deliver PSHE classrooms. They need to deliver PSHE classes for mental health illnesses. Be able to speak about mental health illnesses in a comfortable manner, that they're not afraid to use the right terminology, and how to actually discuss these situations, discuss different illnesses, and allow students to have their own conversations about these illnesses.
Parents need to be able to have these conversations with their children or guardians or any family member and also friend. I think the generation above are catching up in terms of mental health awareness, so I'm quite hopeful that this is something that can constructively come about.
Self-care in dating education, something similar to mental health first aid, but at a bit more teenage and adolescent level, because that's an age where we're exploring new things, and dating becomes a new world that we all want to explore. But we have sex education programs in school which focus a lot on the physical health and safety part of it, but not as much on the emotion part of it. So we're not trained or properly equipped with the tools that we need to deal with heartbreak, deal with rejection, saying no to people, being respectful to the people you're dating or to the people you're sexually involved with. These things aren't talked about as much as they should be.
I'll share a bit about my experience. Sorry if this is in advance triggering for anyone, but I attempted on my life multiple times when I was at university, and I was expected to turn up to class the next day. They're reacting to the situation way too late. 5 members of staff aren't going to be able to tackle a long waiting list of students who need support there and then. So I think it was a 6-week waiting list to be seen by a counsellor at university. In 6 weeks, so much can happen. What does a young person do when they don't have support for that long?
You go to Epsom College, which very proudly we were voted and received the award of Independent School of the Year for Wellbeing this year, and I recognise my privilege in that situation. And
then with uni, I don't have an answer to how to help my uni, because the academic pressure is so intense and it's condensed into 8-week terms. But I would say resources definitely need to double. Tutors need to be able to listen to students and take on board that your mental health needs to come above a grade.
And I was told even before I got there that it's very much like a ride or die environment. Like the academic pressure is huge, not just from your tutors, but also from the name of the institution. And you feel it, and because of that you get the imposter syndrome. So you don't only have the academic pressure of having to be the best, but then you think, what am I doing here? There are thousands of other people more intelligent than me in this uni, thousands of other people who deserve the place in the uni more than I do. And I think the education system, or at least the institution, needs a really strong look at itself, because it's things like that leads to the high suicide rate, and to change these sort of cultural norms that we have within the institution to better facilitate people's mental health.
Been talked about before and discussed is what could encourage universities to carry on and improve their mental health services if we create a leaderboard for student satisfactions in terms of mental health. So I know that there's for student satisfaction. I'm currently looking at UCAS right now, so I'm going through that experience, which is great fun. But if we created one for mental health and how to get support and the ease of getting support and the effectiveness of each university, it would encourage universities to actually go through and look at their systems, because they love to get top 10 in any category they can, and they'll stick it on a banner. So if we create these leaderboards, I think that they would be more encouraged to do so.
Nexgen is about prevention, the first line of defence. We encourage everyone to support Nexgen Wellbeing in our efforts to enhance mental health resources at the preventive level. If you're able to support our mental health reset initiative, please do reach out to us. Follow us on our LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, social media.